Yo, and hello, everybody. Mike here. Welcome to another episode of the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast. I am excited to keep this renewal going. Started last week with Craig. Great to talk to him as always. I've got another great episode lined up for you guys today, and many more coming in the next few weeks. So, this is someone that my guest today is a friend that I have not ever had on the podcast before. And if memory serves, I think he used to listen to the podcast back in the day, but we'll ask him. Let's bring him on right now. It's my good friend, Ben. How you doing?
Doing great, Mike. Thanks for inviting me. I am a longtime listener and follower, so I'm honored to be on. Thank you.
So we met in person at a Dallas show before. Apparently there's a story of us meeting and me not remembering that. Is that right?
Well, it was quick. I was at the Dallas Card Show for the first time, and I was walking around. And all of a sudden, I heard your voice, and I'm like, "That's crazy. That's Mike." And I went up and said hi to you, and we were talking about some card, and it was cool. It was nothing that you would have remembered, but it was great to see you.
And then we met through Chasing Cardboard. And in honor of that, I wore the old school first iteration of the Chasing Cardboard hat. Because that was what, 2 years ago? Does that sound
Yeah,
right?
that was. And I've had the honor to come to your house a couple times. I see the beast in the background. I have sat Indian style on your floor and gone through many drawers and I didn't know you had the autograph collection. So that was the day I discovered how extensive and amazing that was, which is probably my favorite part of your collection.
That's
So
good. It's my favorite part of my collection too.
yeah,
And showing stuff to you who not only do you see the baseball value of it, the players and their significance, but you see the historical significance of some of the things, which I appreciate as well. And most people, it's not that they don't care, they just don't care. And so you have an appreciation for it at a different level, and that makes it even more fun to show and talk about and what was going on. And one thing about you, Ben, that I've come to love and respect is your historical viewpoint that you bring to everything that you see, and that desire to know what's behind this, what else is here, what else is part of this story, because you love the story of history. As if people that are watching, Ben's room there, which I have been in also, is just full of historical uh, pieces and artifacts and documents and all kinds of stuff that, especially for our shared Texas history that we both love. Did you take Texas history as a class when you were a kid?
I did, and then I got out of control, and it just became a lifelong passion. And yeah, I mean, we bonded on the Texas thing, and you and Ty coming to my house for that episode. I just, none of my friends are into card collecting, and so when you guys came, I was so excited. I'm like, finally, I've got two buddies, and I was so excited to show you. And then just, staying in touch, and you've become a friend and hanging out. It's been really fun for me. So yeah, I think we connect on a lot of things. Um, the ranch lifestyle, we both do that on the weekends, and share a lot of same values. And yeah, I just wish I'd met you 20 years ago.
Well, yeah, we could have been best friends then for sure, and fast becoming that now. So your history in cards, right? What was the first thing you collected? Let me start there.
It was cards. My dad has this theory that every boy can remember his favorite team full starting lineup around 11 or 12. I mean, for me, it was the 88 Astros. I was just all in. The first pack I ever got was 86 tops at, man, it was a baseball. It was Hatley Baseball Field. My sister was playing softball. My dad gave me a couple quarters, and I went and opened a pack and got Dale Murphy. He told me Dale Murphy was the only good card in the pack. And I just, man, 87, 88, 89, those were like the sweet spots for me originally collecting. There was a store called Big O's down the road, and we'd save up our allowance, and my mom would take us there. And then back in the day, Sam's, you could buy, a box for $10. And so she's like, hey, I'm going to go to Sam's and shop for 10 hours. And my brother and I would say, can we go? And she'd give us a box, and we'd sit there and rummage through 89 Donruss. So that was it. I mean, I collected pretty hard. middle of the 90s, and then it started getting, so many sets, and I started moving on to other things. And then probably 2005, I just I got on eBay and I saw an old Ty Cobb and I threw a stupid number at it and won it. And then I bought a Babe Ruth Gaudy, and I just started going after these big things I finally had a little bit of money and these cards that were just out of touch. And it just started me off on collecting. And I kind of remember as a kid going into Big O's and seeing some of these old vintage cards. They had an old box of 51 Bowman. And I just remember thinking, man, it'd be so fun to have that. But it's kind of crazy as you get older and you have a little bit of money and you start getting some of the stuff that it came alive. And I went to a few shows as a kid with my dad. I have a twin brother, and that was always fun. So it's something really nostalgic. My dad knows everything about every player, so it's something we connect on to. For him, it was the '62 Cardinals, and I can take him. I love sitting down with just a set with him and going through these pages, and he's like, "Did you know this was the first guy to do X?" And he always has some story about people. So I have 3 sons, and it's just a way. We love going to games. We're huge fans. But baseball cards has been a way for my brother, his kids, my dad, my kids, for us to all connect.
That is kind of what it's all about, right? I mean, if you
Yeah.
think about it, if it's not that, it's very short-lived from my experience with people. There's got to be an emotional connection some way, somehow. I remember my dad buying me cards. I remember my mom taking me to Sam's and the pallets of
Yeah.
Donruss, Score, or Upper Deck, whatever was there, right? $10 a box. And I always loved it when there was tops on the shelf.
Yeah.
Usually there were multiple choices that you could have. And we opened so much of that junk. 88 tops, man.
Oh yeah.
I remember throwing away, I don't know, 3 or 4, 5,000 count boxes of 88 tops when we moved. Because I'm like, I will, what are these for? So I made everybody's 88 tops more valuable because I threw a bunch away.
What was your first year that you went all in and just bought the whole set, organized by team? Do you remember?
It was probably 86, 87. I mean, I started in 81, but it was pack here, pack there. I mean, I was 8 years old, so it was not like I had money or I could only get what my parents would get me. And
Yeah.
so the early 80s, I mean, I remember thinking Drake's cards were like the coolest thing because they were different, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are these?
Yeah.
So it was never about values. I mean, that mine went in a shoebox, rubber banded together, so that was, and I organized them by team and I always wanted the Rangers. And that was, but I don't, in terms of like buying full boxes and stuff like that, it was probably 86 was what I remember.
I became I was solidified as a hardcore baseball fan in '93. The commissioner of the American League was a guy named Bobby Brown, and my dad had done some kind of deal with him, and they were friends. And so he invited us to the All-Star game at Camden Yards, and we got tickets to the Home Run Derby, and there was like a player party beforehand. And so we show up at this gala, and I remember walking in, and Joe Carter's there, and John Kruk, and Reggie Jackson walks up and asks, we're sitting at the hot dog stand, and asked if I wanted a hot dog. And I walked into a circle, and Barry Bonds and Ken Griffey, David Justice and his girlfriend, Halle Berry. I was just surrounded by all these legends, and it was just, ESPN was filming there. My brother and I got behind the camera and we're waving, and it was just like the coolest time of my life. And then the next day they had the Home Run Derby, and it was like a celebrity game. And so Michael Jordan hit a home run, Patrick Ewing, Tom Selleck. It was like the most magical weekend ever. And I was a hardcore baseball fan after that. That was a good childhood memory.
Yeah, 93 was Gonzalez's year to win the Home Run Derby, if I remember right.
Yeah, Griffey went off the warehouse.
Yeah, the warehouse.
Yeah, Juan Gonzalez. We sat in front of his parents, and we were next to Pudge's parents for that deal. So they were going crazy. It was fun.
Well, here's another connection. Bobby Brown, before he died, former major leaguer. He was a doctor. I mean, his life story is absolutely fascinating. If you don't know the life of Dr. Bobby Brown, played with the Yankees, teammate of Mantle's. Mantle tells some great stories about him. Became the American League president. Was a heart surgeon, from what I remember, or something like that. And he lived here in Fort Worth. And I got connected with some like old, like when I say old, I'm old, but these were really old guys, like guys in their mid 70s and 80s, through autographs. And they're like, hey, do you want to meet Dr. Bobby Brown? We have lunch every Wednesday. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. And so I went to lunch with them, and he had before he died, an estate sale, which is kind of funny to have an estate sale before you died. And he lived in a beautiful house in an area that I grew up in, and went to his house. And I didn't hear about it until like day 3, but the baseball stuff I was able to buy from Dr. Bobby Brown's personal collection was awesome. I own his rookie card not because I ever watched him play, but because I had a connection with him as an older gentleman. Super nice, super humble, great stories. So we didn't know either of those things about each other until just now.
Awesome. What a cool story. Wow.
And when he passed away, I was sad because I was like, I'll never get to talk to him again and ask him baseball questions again. But certainly a absolutely saint of a human being, truly. And he was super generous to so many people. Like, I've heard stories about his generosity, and it's way under the radar. And I'm like, that's a life well lived. That is, he's going to get to heaven, and God's going to say, well done, good and faithful servant, I think.
Yeah.
But so you start buying cards at Sam's. You go to the All-Star game in 1993. You buy a Ty Cobb in 2005. When do you think it got out of control for you? Like for all of us, when does it go, okay, I'm really getting hardcore into this?
I mean, it's got to be COVID. That was I was like a steady, responsible collector up until COVID, and then it just got a little squirrely. Yeah, I mean, I guess in that Chasing Cardboard episode, I tried to frame myself as this curator who's above hoarding, but I don't know. I have quite a bit of mass, and it's just weird, collecting for me, I'm not thinking. I have certain investments that I think are actually going to really appreciate and help my family. Collecting's, it's fun. I think the money I'm putting into this, I'm going to get some of it out. But for me, it's so cathartic. Like, it's mental. I think I have to have things that I do that are just so mind neutral, or actually net benefit, to just release me from, you just want to do some stuff that's just totally fun. And so for me, cards are so fun. I can put on a baseball show or some kind of interview and just work on a set, and it's just so peaceful and it's fun. And I always love to have cards around me and projects kind of going. So, you're on some calls I've worked from home for 20 years, so I've got kind of a comfortable setup. And so if I'm in a bunch of meetings, I'm usually kind of working on some cards. But like any collecting, all of a sudden you get kind of pulled into something and you're interested about it. For me, it's a lot of the old sets, so I don't really have much that's modern. I just love the old rare sets that are 1950 and before. So I'll find a set, I'll do research, I'll get a card. And the way I collect is I like to have them in these binders. And so I like to fill a page. And the worst thing is I open a blank page and I have one card and I'm like, man, I need to fill this page. And I just start poking around. So if I'm looking to buy, I enjoy browsing eBay and looking for things and slowly just picking off random cards, and they go into the binders and they fill pages. But the last 5 years, it's been pretty steady. It's been a lot of fun.
So I've seen a lot of what you're talking about in your binders. I love how you organize your collection. And it makes sense to my brain as well, that, okay, I want to fill this page. That I relate to completely and totally understand where the mindset is coming from. But you love things like tattoo orbits, and you love Gaudies and all kinds of stuff. Is there a few favorite sets that you just really love in that pre-war era?
Yes. I've got some binders. If you want, I can show you a couple The DeLong, that was I just love that set. And you were, let me pull that up. You were so kind to be, I was on the lookout for the Gehrig and you found it. And that was super helpful for me to finally finish that up. But just kind of get to show you, here's like the Goudy heads up. So these binders, if I've got a white square, that means that it's the real one's in my safe. But I just love having them open and to be able to browse them and have all of them in front of me. So I love that heads up set. I'm looking at the 40 play ball.
It's the Sport King set. Yeah. And there's your DeLongs.
There's a DeLongs.
Wow.
There's a Gehrig that you allowed me to get when you found, which was really great.
We both got one the same day. So
like the 37 O-Pee-Chee,
yeah,
these Canadian sets. That's an example of, I remember seeing one of those as a kid and I just wanted to go get a few of those and collect. But yeah, the Goudys.
Oh, knock your camera over. That's good. I love how you put all the colors the same. Like they're not in numerical order, they're in color matching order, right?
Yeah, for some reason that's just
how your brain works, huh?
Yeah. So that's how I enjoy collecting. The Diamond Stars, again, that's a great set. And so like right now,
you'll love this because I've got a gentleman coming on who's a Diamond Stars aficionado, and we're doing a whole episode on just that set of this podcast. So you'll love that, I think.
Yeah. I'm working on the 52. I found the new product, which is these massive binders. And these are cool because they hold top loaders. So you can put your cards in these top loaders and open them up. So that's
bigger than you.
I know, it's massive. So that's a 52. And then this will be a 53. And I can kind of see what I need. And so I like to, I'll buy the sets and then these will be the doubles.
Okay.
And I love just the feel of them. I love the fronts, the backs, just feeling them in my hand. And so these are my leftover 52s. And then I've got the 54s that are extras. I don't know what I'm going to do. Hey, I need to get these to you because you're going to work on those sets at some point.
I am. We need to do a trade or something.
And then extra 51 Bowmans. So those will just kind of be current sets that I've got at the desk and I'm working on.
Yeah, I love that you love that stuff. I mean, I feel honored. You've added to my collection because I've bought some stuff from you, and then I've been able to add to your collection. You bought some stuff from me, and I've bought some stuff from you, and it's like we just help each other out, and that's kind of the fun of it. Was it recently you got the DeLong Gehrig? You got some batter ups, right? A whole slew of batter ups.
Yeah, I did.
Did I fill up a page for you? Did you get a page filled up?
Yeah, I did. It's in one of these binders, and I filled up all of them, and it was really amazing. Here's something that's weird that I do is I don't like graded. Sometimes I'll buy graded because it'll say authentic, and I know it's real. But like these 1887, the gold coins, the old Judges, I'll end up buying them, and then I'll break them out of the slab, and I'll include the label just to remember what it was. But I want to be able to have them in the binder and be able to flip through them. Same thing with the Cracker Jacks. Man, I love that set. So now I need to get 18 more to fill up 2 pages. And you get stuff like the 1911, the Silks, just some of these unique sets that you don't see every day.
It's funny. You love the normal and the not normal. What are those?
Those are 1912 Imperial cigarettes, and these are Canadian.
Wow.
Yeah, but just, man.
T205s, multiple.
Yeah, so you recognize those, the red borders, the T210, the Old Mill. Anyways, I just love binders. I have a ton of these binders, but that's just the way I like to collect. I like it raw. I like them in binders. I like to pull it out and be able to flip it. The only cards I've ever sold in my life were you and Ty on that episode of Chasing Cardboard.
Well, I appreciate it. I got my 62 top set from you, and which is right over here, and
an 85 top Kirby Puckett,
and an 85 top, and a Jack Schmidt or Michael Jack Schmidt autograph I bought from you.
The Walter Johnson. No. Christy Mathewson.
I didn't get the Christie from you.
I thought
I did.
Yeah, you did. You ended up with one of them, the blue background.
Yep. Dark cap.
Yeah. I
did. What were you thinking selling that stuff to me? Whatever,
I honestly, I love your shows. I love what you do for the hobby. And I'm like, man, if this guy's going to come all the way to my house, he's going to leave with whatever he wants. That was an easy decision.
If I would have known that, I would know. Now that we know each other way better, like I'm eyeballing those 53 tops for my set. I'm like going, oh man, I could knock out a good chunk. And because my goal is to have every tops card 51 to now, so we could sit here and just go through my list and see if I need them, but that would bore everyone else. So it's not that you don't buy graded cards, mainly just for the authenticity, because you feel more confident if you're spending decent money on a card. You want to know, okay, at least I'm not buying a reprint. Have you bought reprints before accidentally and gotten duped? Or
I have I bought a Ty Cobb and a Mickey Mantle and lost a few $100. You're like, how could this be real? I'm like an expert at fake cards, because I have just spent so much time in this stuff, and I've seen it all. And I went through a little phase where I kind of wanted to have a representation of all of my favorite cards. And I found somebody on Etsy that did these incredible fake versions of them. And I bought a lot of them just because I'm like, man, this is so fun to have this. And I've had my hands on hundreds of fake ones, and you can tell pretty easily. But so I'm super careful. I only buy from a few sellers online. But I always love buying a graded card just because I feel better about it. And then now I'm pretty good at popping them out of the cases, slabs.
I bet you're good. Hopefully you don't crack them like Ty does, because
no,
that just makes me cringe every time I even think about it. So you've got all these sets, you're working on all this stuff. You have a lot of doubles. Is it because you buy big lots of cards and just, I need a few, I know I'll need a few of them, or I can upgrade condition, or how does that go?
Yeah, I'll just buy a big lot, because then that means a few hours of fun. Come home, sort them, work on a project. And I just like that. I know that if I have extras, I can give them to folks like you that need them. So I've always got my eye. All of my searches tend to have the word lot in it, because I like to buy big lots.
Gotcha. And you're not a condition snob, which I actually find refreshing. Like the DeLong Gehrig that you have has paper loss. I mean, you can tell what it is. It's not like it's unclear, but that makes a card that would otherwise be potentially out of price range affordable, right? It allows you, and it's still a Lou Gehrig, DeLong, for example, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, how does your brain work with that? Do you just it's not an issue, or we all want mint cards, right? You all love them, but
yeah, there's like that card to get in a nice, that's a $4,000 or $5,000 card to have in a decent condition. So if you're not taking some significant paper loss, it's just going to be a lot. So there's certain sets that I'm like, man, am I really willing to throw down? Probably not. But if I get one that's condition sensitive, then it fits the set. But for me, it's just something about having it in the collection. Like I don't sell. I don't ever think about, is somebody going to want this? It's something, I don't know. It's just something I just really would love to have the card. And if it looks pretty good, fine. Especially with the way I collect. Paper loss on the back is not a big deal, because I'm never going to look at the back of them. But yeah, isn't it interesting? I think we've all kind of gone through this, where you want the card and you get it and you look at it for a few minutes and you put it in your thing and then you're on to something else. I don't know what that says about us as people, collectors, but I think if you're a collector, there's something about you that really enjoys having something in your possession. And it's just, for whatever reason, it's comforting. It feels good. It's just, you're a collector and you've collected it and it's there. And then you're on to the next thing. So I think that can be dangerous if there's not a discipline to it, but it's pretty fun to do.
I completely relate to that feeling.
In the beast.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I want to move my complete sets to binders, is largely inspired by you and some other guys that I just go, that's the way to enjoy cards, right? And not that I'll look at them every day. I mean, whatever, but I want to have the opportunity to. And if they're in a box, I'm never going to look at them. I can't look. I mean, I can, but it's kind of a pain in the rear, right? So I'd much rather have them in binders and have them nice and organized. And so how do you track your collection and know what you have and what you don't have? Or how many times have you bought a card more than once accidentally?
I'm the worst. Hall of Famers in the 60s, I've bought them all several times. The only spreadsheet I have is in the 50s. 51 Bowman, 52 Bowman, 52 Topps 3. I'm doing the whole 50 set in a spreadsheet, but 60s, 70s. I mean, I have binders. I just like, picture those big binders I've got. I like 86 Topps. There's just something about like National League on the left, American League on the right, like just your favorite guys. 87 Fleer, like cards that I never had. The Fleer were expensive as a kid. I never had those. Or 89 Upper Deck. Like it's just fun to like get all those cards and put them out. There's something about, you open the page and you see the whole 85 Topps all-star grouping and you're like, this is cool. Like that takes you to a place that does something for me in a way that having a slabbed card in a box in a row that I'm not going to really shuffle through, or maybe you look at it and it's a 6 and you're like, man, I wish this was an 8. Like I don't feel any of that. I just visually see it and it just takes me to a happy place. And I'm like, this is cool. I like that. And it helps to have a twin brother that's really into it as well, because we both collect. He really got me into that. That was kind of his style. And so when he comes over, it's fun. I've got a buddy to go through those with.
What's your brother's name?
His name's John.
John. So am I really talking to Ben, or is this John that I'm talking to? I don't know.
Good question. We thought about having him appear in a Chasing Cardboard episode at some point, just showing up, and because we're super identical.
Yeah. See, my twin brother is very fraternal, and we look nothing alike. And he obviously he loves baseball, and he was a pitcher. I was a catcher growing up, and so it was perfect. But he collects now, I think, he loves his Vanderbilt Commodore card, guys that went to Vanderbilt, David Price and Dansby Swanson. And he follows all the new guys and he goes to all the games and just knows the players. So that's his connection, and cards help him connect to that. Right. So he's like, oh, I know Mike Minor and, Sonny Gray and all these guys that are playing in the major leagues. My thing was, I just loved reading books about these stories of Ruth and Cobb and Lajoie and Mathewson. And that was what I loved. And so I don't know, it's kind of a weird, he loves the new stuff. I love the old stuff. So we're not really alike in how not that he doesn't appreciate the old stuff, but
yeah, my brother he's kind of frozen in the 80s, which is awesome. But I can, like Ken Burns, the history of baseball. I love those early episodes and the dead ball era, and you're learning about some guy. And I'm like, that's how I got so into Walter Johnson and Christy Mathewson, and who were some of the best hitters of the day. And then there was a cool set from like KB Toys. You guys remember those toy shops? It was like the greatest hitters of all time. And I think Circle K did a set. And that's where I was like, who's this Jimmy Fox guy? He looks cool. And you start getting introduced to some of those older players. And so then it's like, man, I want to do kind of a Jimmy Fox run, which I've done. I think he's awesome. But I'm kind of drawn like you to who are some of the folks that made the game of baseball that were early legends. What was happening at that time? What was to go to a game in 22. What was it like? Who was leading the league in homers and hits? Like, who was it? The amount of pitching these guys did was insane. So I don't know. I'm just a fan of the game of baseball, and so that really helps to then transfer into cards.
Have you read Glory of Their Times?
No.
Oh, Ben.
Tell me about it. Are you disappointed?
No, listen to it. I would get the audiobook because
Okay.
it's actually the actual live interviews with Smokey Joe Wood and Harry Howman, or I'm just thinking of guys, from way back, Chief Bender or whoever. And
Yep.
it's their actual interviews and just their stories of baseball in the 1910s, 1920s.
Yeah.
It is, you're welcome. I'll just say right now, you're
Thank
welcome. And I love it so much. I'm like, and the baseball documentary, I'm like, man, I want a Fred Merkle card because I want something that reminds me of Merkle's boner, or whatever. Just it sounds funny because it's funny to say. And I'm 12 years old in my brain. So, but stuff like that, it definitely worth a listen in the audio. I mean, you can buy the print book, but the audio books,
that's it,
on a different level.
That's perfect. Yeah, turn on the audio book and just be working through an old set and hearing those stories. That's what I'm talking about.
You will. Tell me more about your dad, because I think dads have a direct or indirect influence on who we become as adults on a whole lot of levels. But your dad was he was a Cardinal. You mentioned the 62 Cardinals that he loved, and I know he's a Stan Musial guy. What did he love about Stan Musial?
He grew up in Texas and Colorado, but the Harry Carey broadcast on the airwaves, just good memories of him talking about listening to that. His mom was a huge Cardinal fan. She was from Missouri. And so he just had that as a part of who he was. He made a point when we were little to always take us on these baseball trips. So that was so fun. He's like, hey guys, we're going to be going to Wrigley Field this year. And we do a ton of research and we'd buy our Cub cards. And I mean, we went to so many stadiums. And so, on some level, that's just an amazing memory for boys and fathers and sons to go on a trip together. And you're staying in a hotel and you're walking to the stadium, and it's just magical. And I've tried to do that with my kids. And at some level, it just represents putting time out on life and just a dad investing and saying, hey, let's just go enjoy this together. Life slows down, let's talk. And I think the older you get, life's so busy, just really connecting with your kids or your parents, it gets harder. And I saw this stat, I guess by the time your kids are 18, 50% of you've used up 50% of your quality face time that you'll have with them through the rest of their life. And so the ability to connect on sports or just anything is really valuable. And so, he's 72 now. He was literally the best dad ever. Just such a great role model, incredible guy. So good to my mom, so good to all of us. And so that's something, he comes to the house and I'm like, hey dad, check this out. I can pull out anything. And immediately we're talking, I'm getting him to talk and share about the past. And I'm saying, I'm adding to it. So part of it's entertaining, but part of it is just an emotional, relational level. It gives you an opportunity to connect with the ones you love.
Do you make your boys be parts of those conversations so they can hear their grandfather talk like that?
I don't make them. I mean, we live close. We see my parents all the time. We get a lot of time with them. My little guy, I've got 3 sons. My youngest son, Jack, he's into football. And so we connect on buying football cards. So I'll buy some modern stuff with that. The other 2 kids have gone through different phases, but they connect with my dad on different levels, more stuff related to the ranch and hunting and just kind of ranch life.
How did Jack like the CJ Stroud rookie you got?
Loved it. Yeah, he's so great. A 12-year-old is so full of enthusiasm. And in at that age, they still think dad is pretty awesome. So he's just like 10 of 10 on enthusiasm and excitement. Kids like that are fun to buy for because they go crazy and they're just like, that's awesome. So I enjoyed giving him that card.
And they haven't been, I'll say, corrupted with the money part of it yet, by and large, right?
Yeah.
I bet the first question wasn't, Dad, how much is this worth? right?
No. Yeah.
And that's a good thing. He just saw it as a player that he likes and loves, and
That's right.
that mattered to him way more. Wow, as much time as we spent together, we're getting into stuff now that I didn't know about you, which is pretty darn. That's kind of, I guess, the point, right?
That's it.
Doing this. Okay, so what's next for you? Like, what is just kind of the same thing? Like, what would you give as advice for someone trying to build a collection if they like the stuff that we like?
Uh, what's hard for me is I collect Wild West weaponry. I collect old Bibles and his theological documents. I collect old manuscripts and documents related to the areas that my family has settled in. Like I have all these really odd things that I love to collect. So the same kind of passion and interest I do for baseball, I do in these other areas. And so um, it's odd. I think, okay, here's an example. One of my friends has been seeing kind of what I'm doing, and now he's going around and buying stuff. And so he'll send me a picture from an antique store, and it'll be like some random card, like 1972 Rusty Staub. And he's like, I like this guy. I'm nervous for him because he doesn't really have a strategy. I would say find something that you really like for a good reason, and kind of focus on that and do a good job of rounding out that category. I think I think we've all kind of stepped back and we've looked at the random parts of our collection, and you looked at the sum total of the cost of that, and you're like, man, I wish I could kind of trade all this for something else. So my advice to those collecting is get a really good sense of what you're collecting and why, and then focus your collecting and go for that, whatever that unit is where you feel like, okay, I've got that and I'm good. And then find a way to just enjoy that and represent that, and then move on to the next thing. But if you do too much scattershot, like, hey, here's a sweet modern, football auto, and then here's a random vintage baseball, and then this was a really sweet call. I think a lot of people could end up with just a lot of stuff that's not very focused. I think some people probably love that, but I think most people that have kind of a disappointment is you're like, man, I don't really have a main theme. I'm just kind of grabbing stuff. If you're spontaneous, it's even the worst because you're just going to pull the trigger and grab it. And you know what I'm saying? Has that ever happened to you, Mike?
For sure. I can even think about a time we were together at the Dallas show, and I tried to convince you to buy a Ricky Henderson autographed rookie.
That's right.
And you were very disciplined, and you said, I don't want to go down this road because I'm worried about where it'll, because once you get a few of those and you realize, okay, relatively speaking, this isn't that expensive, right?
Yeah.
And man, I could just open a Pandora's box that I don't know that I want to go down.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do. And now that's a little more expensive to get that card. But that's one of the challenges I think being on the Chasing Cardboard deal is there's so much good stuff, and you could just buy whenever you want. But what's hard for you and I as collectors is we're buying stuff that fits in our collection, and sometimes there's a good fit and sometimes there's not. But I think if you're looking to resell, you can pretty much buy anything if you think you can resell it. So that's why I'm a little bit slower on the trigger, because I'm a little pickier on, at this point, finding stuff that I think is pretty unique or that I'm missing.
So you got the DeLong Gehrig, right? That was, if I had talked to you, or when I had talked to you before, that felt like that was your kind of number one. Like, I would love this card. Is there a new number one now of cards you would like to acquire that you don't have yet?
The Gowdy Babe Ruths, the big boys. For most of these cards, I've started with the Hall of Famers, and now I'm going back and backfilling the commons. But the Gehrigs, I really want those. But it's hard. You and I are both involved in finance a bit, and so like the compounding value of money, it's hard. Every time I think about spending 1,000, I think about the compounding interest rate, that working for me over 10 years at 8%. It's hard. It kind of gets in your head, but that's kind of in the back of your mind. You're thinking, I love anything Ty Cobb, anything Babe Ruth. I've got most of the Ted Williams run. The Franks, what's that Franks card for Ted Williams?
The Wilson Franks, yeah.
The Wilson Franks. I would love that card. That's probably the one that I probably want the most right now.
White background. I can see the card. I know what
I mean. Beautiful. It's classic. It's rare. There's not a ton of them.
It's awesome. All the boxes, doesn't it? For for awesomeness.
Yeah.
I've probably only seen a handful of those in person. I do remember back to when I could have bought all the US caramels that I wanted to for reasonable cost, just
Yeah.
I look back and go, oh, now I can't find them. And that's kind of how I feel about that Wilson Franks Ted Williams is, it was always expensive, but relatively speaking, it's super cheap. And that's the old adage, today's high prices are tomorrow's discounts on the right stuff, not on everything, obviously. But when you're contemplating, do I buy this? Do I not buy this? Well, you can buy it now for X, or you can buy it later for X times 4 or whatever it turns into. And it may not be the same as owning another hard asset or, a stock or something like that. But that's kind of not the point, really.
Right.
And I think we're both completionists for sure. Like, certainly you said you do the Hall of Famers. Like, I'm now in the 40s heavy, in the 30s heavy. And what's cool, I've got all the Hall of Famers. So that's just good, or most of them anyway. So I'm at least starting with those. And I think that's what you're saying you do too, is you start with the more expensive stuff and can always fill in the common.
Yeah. Here's the batter ups you helped me get.
Look at those.
Philip Page. I did start a pink page. Now I got to fill that up.
Gosh.
But gosh, some of these, the Z-Nuts, those are a West Coast league. Those are beautiful. There's always another set that's out there.
Yeah. And that's the fun, right? Part of it. What else is out there? What can I find? And I love that, you're getting more friends in the hobby. You're getting, and I think, are you going to the National this year? Did I hear a rumor that you're going to the National?
Man, I want to. We're typically gone in the summers. I really want to do it though. I've never been. I've been to the Dallas show, which is awesome. That thing just keeps getting bigger. Man, that is, if you haven't done that, you've obviously done it, but anyone that's listening or watching, it's so much fun to get a hotel room actually at the location, because you can run up and down your room, and at night there's trade nights, and every kid is setting up shop, and there's literally hundreds of people setting up their own trading area to trade, and it's just so fun. And there's good food, and it's a really great thing to do. Father, son, daughter, mother. I mean, I highly recommend it. So we're going to try to go to one of those here coming up. And then I'd love to find a way to get my boys to the National.
Yeah. You got to bring, I don't think your boys have been to my house. I think only you have. So
road trip. Let's go.
They would, it's not that far. Come on. You gotta get some business reasons to be up here, and then we'll,
well, if we hit the Dallas show and then a couple nights sleeping on your floor in the office, going through the cards, there you go.
It doesn't sound like the worst way to spend anything, but I would love to watch you go to the National. I've been to so many, and it's still always amazing. I'm not trying to say, I've done this so many times that I'm over it. I'm not. It's overwhelming every time I walk in the room every year. I'm reminded of, holy crap, this hobby's pretty big, and it's like the boys would love it at the National. Because
I remember, I went one time and we hung out for a bit at the Dallas show, and we were just walking around together, which is fun just to see how other people interact with booths. And so, you're obviously very organized, and your memory on your collection is insane. Cause I'll be like, dude, that's a sweet autograph. Do you have that? And you're like, I got that. I'm like, how do you know? And you're like, I just know. So, but it's just fun to see your friends, like, or I see something that I'm like, man, Mike would love that. And I've seen that with you and your friends at different shows, and you ring up your buddy and you got to get over here. I see this card that you're going to love. And it's a good time, man. I love that stuff.
Now I got to be on the hunt for Ted Williams, Wilson Franks, but it'll be does Ben get this one or is this one for me? But that was great about the DeLon Gehrig. I had 2 of them, and I'm like, I know who's getting the other one. Like if he wants it, it's his. Like
I remember you announcing like my card for the year is this card, and I'm just like, I text you right away, and I'm like, me too, man. So that was so cool that you had 2, and then you called me right away. I really appreciate that.
You were literally the first person I called at the Grail Collection. I'm like, Ben gets first dibs.
Man, you hooked me up with the caramels.
The U.S. president caramels.
Yeah, U.S. president. You set aside a pretty big stack for me, which was awesome. Like anytime I see pre-war stuff, it's look out, because that's
how much PayPal, Zelle, Venmo. Yeah. How do you want it? I would love to watch you go through it. I would love to just walk with you through it and see it through your eyes for the first time. Like, not that it's old hat necessarily, but it's like, it's different when it's your very first one. And you can watch it on video. You can do nothing gives it or serves the justice of how big and massive and cool. And there's just so much there. And it would be fun to do that with you. So we got to make that happen sometime. And we can go to the ranch, although I need to go to your ranch too. And I can see what you're doing right, that I can do better. And that's what I want to learn. Man, this was fun. Any last thoughts? We're about out of time for this episode. So
no, love talking baseball, love talking cards. Appreciate you, Mike, and what you do for the hobby. Grateful for your friendship.
I am grateful for your friendship as well. And again, you never know when you're going to find new friends. And that's another cool thing that we should never take for granted in the hobby, that there's people out there that think like us, and it's good to connect. So thanks, Ben. For everything.
Yeah. Most people are sort of alone in the hobby, and guys like you add a community feel, welcome others, and just foster conversations and dialogue. And so, there's so many folks that are just listening to this by themselves, or, just enjoying that. And that gives a sense of camaraderie and community. So thank you for what you add to the hobby and helping others feel like they're a part of a bigger group.
Well, just don't tell everybody that I'm really a jerk in private, like when I'm not with the camera.
Don't worry.
Don't tell anyone. All right. Thanks, Ben, so much. And we'll see you guys next week for another episode of Golden Age of Cardboard. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Take care and keep collecting.